common problem for new drivers in a manual car is pressing the clutch down at the wrong time and allowing the car to freewheel. This is known as coasting and will not only reduce the driver's control over their car, but also increase fuel consumption and brake wear. Since many drivers don't even know that they are coasting, in this video we will explain what coasting is, show the problems it can cause, and finally how we can avoid it. As always, if you would like to be notified of our next video, please subscribe to our channel, and if you have any questions about this video, then please leave a comment below. The most common situation where we see coasting is when the driver pushes the clutch down unnecessarily, resulting in the car rolling along without any gear engaged. This can happen when approaching a junction on a main road, when coming to a stop, or after a gear change. Another form of coasting is when a driver selects neutral while the car is still moving. This has similar disadvantages and should also be avoided. Let's have a look at the three biggest problems that coasting can cause. Coasting is potentially dangerous as it reduces the control we have over our car. When a car is driven with a gear selected and the clutch engaged, this mechanical link gives us a way to control our speed. When we lift off the accelerator, drag from the engine will slow the car gently and reduce the need to use our brakes. If the clutch is pushed down unnecessarily, the car is allowed to roll at whatever speed it wants to, and this can be dangerous, especially when driving downhill. Coasting would not normally fail a driving test by itself, but if it is done excessively or leads to a more serious fault such as poor observation at a junction, then it could result in a fail. When slowing down in a modern car with a gear engaged, the momentum of the car will keep the engine turning over, and the fuel injection will not need to use any fuel. In contrast, coasting will actually waste fuel, as whenever the clutch is pushed down, the engine has to use a little fuel to keep the engine running at idle speed. In addition, because coasting uses the clutch and brakes of the car more often, they will also wear out faster than normal. Coasting can prevent us from reacting promptly to a changing situation on the road. If approaching a red traffic light in gear with the clutch engaged, should the lights change, we are able to accelerate away without delay. If we approach with the clutch depressed and neutral selected, then we are unable to react promptly, as we will have to engage a gear again before being able to accelerate. In an emergency, this delay might even put us in danger, so we should never select neutral until the car has fully stopped. Next, let's look at 4 simple ways we can avoid coasting. Coasting can be dangerous when driving downhill, as when we hold the clutch down, the engine is disconnected from the wheels and the car is able to freewheel at whatever speed it wants to. We are going to coast down this hill to see what happens. As the hill gets steeper, the car speeds up on its own so much that it actually reaches the speed limit. Notice that as we engage the clutch again, this reconnects the engine to the wheels and brings the car speed under control without the need to use the brakes. On a longer or steeper hill, we would be forced to use the brakes much more, and this could overheat the brakes to the point that they fade or fail altogether. If we drive down the same hill again with the clutch engaged, the engine braking effect keeps the car's speed in control. The car speed only rises a few miles per hour and there is no need to brake. So whenever driving down hills, select a suitable gear and keep the clutch pedal up. On very steep hills, we may need to brake a little as well, but we will still have far more control than before. Holding the clutch down as we approach junctions will reduce control over our speed. On a downhill junction, it allows the car to enter it too fast. This will reduce the time we have to judge other traffic, and we might be forced to brake suddenly or swerve around the corner. On a driving test, the fault might be recorded as poor observation or steering control, but the coasting on approach would certainly have contributed to the situation. On uphill junctions, the opposite could happen. If we approach with the clutch pressed down, there is nothing to drive the car forward up the hill, so it could stop anywhere it wants to, or even roll back. To lose control like this on a test would certainly be recorded as a serious fault. Let's repeat these junctions and see how much difference approaching them with a gear engaged makes. On the downhill junction, second gear controls the car speed, and we don't need to brake as hard to stop the car, giving us more time to stop smoothly and look for traffic on the main road. Once up to speed, we look ahead for the uphill junction and ensure we slow the car early enough to allow us to select and engage the best gear for the junction. Normally, this is second. When we lift the clutch pedal, the wheels are linked to the engine again, and this will help the car slow down smoothly. We can then drive around the junction in full control and at the correct speed. Second gear is able to drive at very low speeds in most cars, and if we let the engine idle without pressing the accelerator, the car will roll along at under 10 miles per hour normally, which is slow enough for almost any junction. When stopping the car at the side of the road, we should try to avoid pushing the clutch down earlier than necessary, as we will have less control over where the car stops. If there is an uphill gradient or we misjudge the car's momentum, it might stop earlier than we need, forcing us to engage the clutch again to keep the car rolling. If we forget to select first gear in this situation, it will probably result in an unnecessary stall. To stop the car precisely where we want to and avoid any coasting, all we have to do is keep an eye on the car's rev counter, as it will show us when to push the clutch down. The idle or minimum speed for a car engine is just under 1000 RPM, so if we make sure that we disengage the clutch before the rev counter needle drops under 1000, then we will minimise coasting without any fear of stalling the engine. It doesn't matter what gear we are using, pushing the clutch down at 1000 RPM will prevent the car from stalling. When driving at high speeds, keeping the car in balance is essential to maintain control around bends. If a driver always presses the clutch down every time they brake, this can unbalance the car. This is because every time the car's clutch pedal is lifted to engage the gear, it has to bring the engine up to speed. The drag from this happening will slow the car and is similar to braking on a corner. This can unbalance the car and potentially lead to a loss of control. Let's drive that section of road again. Expert drivers will always corner at a constant speed with a gear engaged, as this maintains the car's balance. In addition, it is possible to control the car's speed purely by varying the amount of accelerator used, as the engine braking effect when lifting off the accelerator will gently decelerate the car without the need to constantly use the brakes. For more information, please watch our other video called Balanced Cornering. The basic principle to remember is that we should keep the clutch engaged for as much time as possible, as this will give us better control over our speed and also reduce wear to the clutch and brake systems. So remember to always keep a gear selected when moving. Stay in control on hills. Approach junctions in gear and push the clutch down at idle speed when stopping. If you found this video interesting and would like to be notified when we release the next one, then please click our logo to subscribe to our channel. If you would like to help us make new videos, then please consider becoming a member or patron of our channel. Thanks for watching.